suffering malnutrition. Following the increasing number of these cases, so far 8 children from Congolese refugees have been confirmed dead due to malnutrition. Malnutrition among children is attributed to poor feeding and sanitation in the refugee camps. Dr. Uganda said the increased number of refugees has constrained service delivery in Chisoro, with health facilities in the district getting overwhelmed with the number of patients, majorly women and children of Congolese origin. With the worsening situation in refugee camps of Nyakabande and the surrounding communities, Dr. Benon is not ruling out the outbreak of uncommunicable diseases due to overcrowding. According to health reports, many of the Congolese confirmed to be suffering from malnutrition entered Uganda while already sick. Scholastica Kaberu, the Kisoro Hospital Administrator, said they trek long distances to Uganda without food supplements. The commandant Nyakabanda refugee camp, Daniel Kisamo, attributed the worrying situation in refugee to the ongoing war in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo that has led to the huge influx of refugees. Jimmy Oranga from United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said there are many refugees still in transit in Chisoro and in the communities and cause worry of the situation which is not well managed. Oranga made the remarks while receiving food relief items from Smile Africa. Food relief consignment was delivered by Sarah Mosenena from Smile Africa, who said the plight of children in war situations was affected more.
For now, in High Court Civil Division, it said the 1st of August 2022 to deliver its judgment in the matter of the 23 NLM IARA members and aspirants who had filed against the ruling party NRM and the chairperson NRM Electoral Commission, Tanga Odoi. The respondents in the NRM and Dr. Tanga Odoi, represented by their lawyer Usama Sebufu, asked court to dismiss the application on grounds that it was wrongly filed before the court. Now, following the Central Executive Committee decision on 9th July 2022, when it endorsed the 6 incumbents to participate in the East African Legislative Assembly, Arusha-based Parliament, the 23 aggrieved NRM aspirants filed a suit in court of law. The case was filed against the ruling party National Resistance Movement and the NRM's Electoral Commission chairperson, Tanga Odoi.
Stories, we start off with what is happening in Japan, and the Japanese police are turning to tranquilizer guns in an attempt to stem the tide of wild monkey attacks that have been terrorizing residents. In recent weeks, 42 people have been reported injured in Yamaguchi City, including children and the elderly. However, while they are a common sight in large parts of the country, incidents like these are unusual. Attempts to capture the animals with traps ended in failure, and police patrols implemented since the first attack in early July have failed to deter the culprits. Authorities are also unsure if the assaults are the work of a single rogue monkey or several. Injuries have varied, with local media reporting victims have received anything from scratches, beaten legs and hands, to beaten necks and stomachs. Stories include a 4-year-old girl scratched during an apartment break-in, while in another instance, a monkey breached a kindergarten classroom. Some residents have reported multiple incursions in their homes as the primates gain access by sliding screen doors or entering through open windows. Once a vulnerable species, Japanese macaque numbers have recently increased. Now, in his first public remarks in Canada, Pope Francis has asked Indigenous residential school survivors for forgiveness. "I am deeply sorry," the Pope said on the grounds of a former residential school in Masquatus near Edmonton. He said his apology is a first step and that a serious investigation into abusers must occur to foster healing. The Pontiff is in Canada to apologize for the Church's role in schools meant to assimilate Indigenous children. The government-funded schools were part of a policy meant to destroy Indigenous cultures and languages. The papal apology was received by applause from survivors in the audience, some of whom traveled far to hear the Pope speak. Pope Francis expressed sorrow, indignation, and shame for the actions of many members of the Roman Catholic Church who ran and operated majority of residential schools in Canada. The 85-year-old Pope called the school system a disastrous error and asked for forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against indigenous people. Bruce Allen, a survivor of one of the residential schools who was in attendance, said it was emotional to hear the Pope's apology, but many are still looking for action from the pontiff.
And back in Africa, Macron's three-nation Africa tour begins in Cameroon. French President Emmanuel Macron has begun a three-day nation tour of African states in the first trip to the continent since winning re-election, as he seeks to reboot France's post-colonial relationship with the continent. Macron's July 25th to 28th tour will start with a visit to Cameroon before moving to Benin and then Guinea-Bissau. The tour will show the commitment of the president in the progress of renewing the relationship with the African continent, said a French presidential official. It was a signal that the African continent is a political priority of his presidency. In Cameroon, which has been riven by ethnic violence and armed operations by the Anglophone separatists, Macron will meet President Paul Biya, 89, who has ruled the country for almost 40 years and is the longest-serving non-loyal leader in the world. Biya has run the country with an iron fist, refusing demands for federalization and cracking down on the rebellion by separatists. According to the French state media Radio France Internationale, Macron is seeking to revive economic ties between his country and Cameroon, where French economic influence has been dwindling, and in the 1990s, French companies represented 40% of the economy, whereas in 2021, that figure dwindled down to 10%. In the weather and climate news, Biden could declare a climate emergency. Now, the U.S. climate envoy John Kelly says President Joe Biden is considering announcing a climate emergency, and this is the move that will give him additional powers to push his renewable energy agenda, which has been held up by lack of support in Congress. Mr. Kelly told the BBC that it was less than ideal that Congress was not fully throttledly in favor, but he said nobody was more committed than President Biden to replace carbon-based energy. Mr. Kelly also said recent Supreme Court rulings restricting government's environmental policies had not helped. Climate change increases the risk of hot, dry weather that is likely to fuel wildfires. Now, the world has already warmed by about 1.1 degrees Celsius since industrial level began, and temperatures will keep rising unless governments around the world make steep cuts to emissions. Tens of millions of people in the U.S. across more than 24 states have been living under heat warnings during the past week. But Mr. Biden's efforts to pass a climate change bill was dealt a blow earlier this month when West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, a conservative Democrat, said he would not vote for the legislation. On Wednesday, Mr. Biden announced $2.3 billion, which is equivalent of 1.9 euros, to help build infrastructure that can withstand extreme weather and natural disasters. However, he stopped short of formally declaring a climate emergency, despite mounting pressure to do so from fellow Democrats and environmental groups.
Well, clearly there is a lot that is happening locally and internationally, and also just to let you know that monkeypox is out there. Very many countries are on the watch out. Of course, we have not registered any cases in Uganda, but the Ministry of Health is also planning on giving in a responsive plan to make sure that we don't get, attacked when we're not ready for this. But also as an individual, you just need to be on the lookout. And speaking of being on the lookout and speaking about also being in such a good health condition, I know that Robert is quite an advocate, especially on that topic. And every other day, he has something to tell you when it comes to boosting your health, just like today.
We want you alive, and I will not get tired of ensuring that every morning I remind you that you need to boost your immune system. That is when you can stay watching us. When you're not feeling fine, we may miss you. So this is what you need. Hallelujah, ginger tea, hallelujah, tamarind drink. When you take these, well, they boost your immune system. So try them at just 1,500 a bottle. Regular consumption is what I recommend.
But of course, also we do want to share with you a poll question where we do seek that you be a part of the show by commenting and of course giving us your opinion. But of course, the same will spring from what did happen yesterday. Now, whether illegal or not, we must true to the fact that there are quite challenges in the commodity prices. Now, our question is, what can be done to deal with the rising commodities prices as citizens threaten to demonstrate? We saw the same in various places of the country, mostly the eastern part. At least we're able to get news from that side. But also you, a viewer, what is your thought, opinion, and what's your honest take on this? And what can be done? What advice can we give our leaders or our own selves? The question is, what can be done to deal with the rising commodity prices as citizens threaten to demonstrate?
Do go on and share with us some of your sentiments, especially on that topic. For now, we're getting into the inspirational song for this Tuesday morning. When we get back, we'll be having quite more conversation, especially about the vendors in Kampala, where they should be going, where they shouldn't be going. We'll be back after this. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
I'm trying to hold my breath. Let it stay this way. Can't let this moment end. You set off a dream in me, getting louder now. Can you hear it echoing? Take my hand, will you share this with me? 'Cause darling, without you, spotlights, all the stars.
Time that we have seen people over there protesting over the rising prices. This is a continuous thing. Even last time when police intervened, they still came back to take it to the streets. So I think government needs to come in at this point and probably help tell these people that, guess what, there is something is being done, and maybe all you have to do right now, you have to a little bit wait. And we've seen that work. It worked with the teachers when government came through to say, look, at teachers, we never saw them backing down, but they did. So maybe we need, you know, someone to talk to people and say, you know what, it's all going to be all right. And we can hope that that's the country we're going forward with.
Well, and honestly, every day that goes by, we see different sects of Ugandans from respective fields trying to make sure that they get into protests to get answers to their questions, commodity prices. You speak of the Surrey elections. I'm telling you that it's quite a political environment over there. And today marks the last day of the campaigns because we'll be having the elections on Thursday. So the tensions are high, the fears are high, the excitement is also high, but you cannot also forget about the anxiety. But we're yet to see, we're just a few hours away from the D-Day. Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you, Masiko, Molen, Felix. I must say Felix is very smart today.
Oh, yes, he
the way he has dressed reminds me of our colonial masters. How they used to be so smart and dressing well. So he's really so smart this morning. And of course,
we'll have a serious comeback for you. I just want to let you know in advance.
Sometimes it's good to poke and do a little bit of provocation. But good morning, everybody. Well, for me, I want to start this morning by thanking people in Capital Shoppers Garden City.
Yes.
So yesterday, after the show, I wanted certain things there, and you know, getting to the supermarket and everyone is like, UBC, we watch you guys, thank you for the morning show, send greetings to Molen, send greetings to Masiko, Felix, they know the entire morning team.
Yes.
And one of the people there that I like so much is Ochan Joseph, who told them, hey, Chirabo is here, and you know, feels good when you meet. So thank you so much, Capital Shoppers. Even if you go there this morning, they are watching UBC TV, that supermarket. So I want to thank you so much for that. Yesterday, we had a lot of activities. First, Soroti, very interesting. We saw people from Noop, people from
was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
a World Cup in the desert, the first one in the Middle East, the first to be held at the end of the year. That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves, high-flying saves, unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Gold TV. Love it.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Shareable using to Gabonais. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Uganda. It is the 26th of July 2022, and our Good Morning Uganda family that has been able to wake up with us, we are grateful that you're still with us. By the way, you can always join in our conversations. We're streaming live on UBC TV and also, of course, on YouTube. You can catch up on all the information and the stories that you missed out. Welcome to this special segment as well. My name is Philomena Masco, and I am in the wise company of these two gentlemen. I'm talking about Robert Chirabo Nyonyitono and Felix Nkunda. This morning's discussion is going to be taking the path towards Kampala. You know, we have come up, government has come up, and the responsible authorities have come up with several interventions to make sure that Kampala is kept a clean city, but is also kept a city that is on the direct path to making sure that we achieve a clean city that is not crowded and that is also organized. I mean, we have seen other cities out there that have a systematic way of running things. And Kampala has also been trying to achieve that goal. Now, when I speak of organization in Kampala City, we cannot fail to talk about, you know, the fate of vendors and hawkers. Now, for the last couple of years, we have seen KCCA come in with several interventions to make sure that the relocation of the hawkers in Kampala happens, whether they're taken to Usafi Market or to other different parts of, you know, the city suburbs. Now, recently, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni did say that he actually has some specific land, about 3 acres, that he has decided that should be allocated for the hawkers here in Kampala. Previously, we had the hawkers being relocated to Usafi, and we had issues coming in here and there. They all had several complaints they were raising. But now the 3 acres of land have been decided on, especially it's going to be in areas of Kalere. Now, of course, when you hear this, there are people who are happy about this, but then there are also people who are unhappy about this. There are two sides of the coin, anyway, like about any other matter. And before we get into it, how applicable is it? Could it be the ideal solution? Is it way better than Usafi? We'll be getting into all these conversations, but maybe just to hear from you, Robert, us getting a final, location okay, where we have all these vendors, all these hawkers stationed permanently? Could it actually be something that we are looking at for us to be able to achieve an organized Kampala, you know, so that we put them in a specific area without having them all over the different parts of the city?
First, we need to understand who are the people that we are planning for,
yes,
or that have been planned for by KCCA and His Excellency purchasing or procuring land of 3 acres around Nsoba, that is in Kawempe Division.
Yes.
A vendor is a person who puts their merchandise, usually on verandas, along the streets, and strategic places. That's why we don't find them in Kololo. You know, if they're there, they are very minimal. We don't find them in Muyenga. So strategic areas where people can easily, that is a vendor. A hawker is in mobile. Moving, they have their merchandise.
Yes.
They are moving all over the place. So in case they attract your attention, sometimes they have even songs they have of attracting you. They have all ways of attracting you to buy their produce. So there are 2 different groups. We are planning for the vendors and the hawkers. Now, one of the things that I'm proud of our President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, he has the heart for the people and he understands their problem. But there's always been a challenge of knowing what is the best solution for them and the people implementing his desired programs. That's where they fail. You must understand, why does this hawker choose to move Omutembe? That even if you gave them a store, why do they still want to move door to door? Those guys are being hunted like armed robbers in Kampala here. You see them running the way they, you know.
The ore is on standby.
Why do they still choose to do that? The vendors, being grounded every time, where they are vending, they are paying, they have like 5 people in case here, you bribe, then finally they come, they take you. Why do they do that kind of way? Because over a time, KCC has come out and said there are spaces in these markets. One time they told us there are about 400 stores in Musafi. One day I had about how many. So they have always been showing us that space is there in the markets. These people just don't want to go to these markets. Government spent billions in one day market. Today, go and look at the drama. That Musafi market was purchased from a certain tycoon. It took us like a decade to have sanity in that market. Now, I said the president knows the problems, he loves the people, but he lacks implementers and those that say this would be the permanent solution. I've seen markets constructed in this country. Abaita, there is one Kauku here in Kampala, and these people, because we've not understood them properly and their method of work,
yes,
they don't go to these markets. It would be very hard for someone to leave Machindi, to leave Rubaga, and go to Kawempe. You know?
Yes.
Transport costs, you know? A group of people that they supply to, you get it. Second, I'm afraid and scared. Go to Kasubi recently, a very modern market. That was watched by His Excellency. I just love it. These guys are still at a dangerous spot where they can even die. Down the road here. But if you look at the other market, it was designed, well designed, meant for the people. They are not going to this market. One, implementation. That when they say these are free things, on the surface they are free. Inside they are charging, and this ordinary person may not make it. Two, the nature of people that you want to take to these particular places. Yes, you can't resist change. You either follow, but I'm telling you at the end of the day, this may not be a solution. Reason being, a hawker and a vendor, their understanding, their way of doing business, that's why we go to certain places, they gazette for them. Because these are people who don't have much capital on them.
Yes.
This is a person who will wake up from his place and can rotate a few kilometers and come back, yet he has sold. This is a person who will move on foot from Katwechinyoro, come to a street here on maybe Winton or whatever, put their merchandise, then move and go back home.
Well, to pick from you, Felix, and again, using your conversation, Robert, as a base, you did talk about how we have several of these markets that have been constructed and gazetted for these specific people to come in with their merchandise and for their probable clients to come and find them in this given place. But clearly, I could say that we're not really achieving that 100%, Felix. So I just really want to, you know, from your point of view, what are we missing? What have we failed to understand to make sure that we get to, you know, a resolution where both the hawkers and the clients are happy, or, you know, the hawkers and the vendors, everybody feels they are satisfied? Because definitely, if we want to achieve a very smart city, Robert and Felix, we can all agree that there is no way we are going to have vendors all over the place. There is no way we're going to have hawkers all over the place. So how do we get to the middle ground? And also, right now, what has failed us from achieving that middle ground?
Yeah. Well, Philo, for me, I think, and by far in my opinion, I would submit that change is something you may not fight, and definitely that's quite curtailed of every situation. However, we are doing the same things in the same way, and that's the challenge I have mostly with the authorities and the institutions. They have chosen to do the same things in the same way, so which means they're actually doing nothing, right?
Yes.
The biggest challenge of people who hold such businesses today, by the way, in markets, hawkers, vendors, this all fall in the same category. Market, you know, actually even in market they are hawkers. In markets they are hawkers.
They are hawkers within
yes,
the markets.
You know, when you go to Nakasero, the people who, and I've seen, I think I used to see this in Owino. Those days, when I used to go I used to go to Mukaja to buy shoes as a young boy in Lubiri. I used to go there to Kuyiriva clothes, then you go and resell. So what I noticed that from 6 to 7, I think, to 8, around there, 6 to, there's a different group selling clothes.
Yes.
Now from that 8 to probably about midday, there's the food people come. Now but even as those people are selling, the people who are hawking around the market, these are the guys who sell the polythene bags. You can talk about people who are selling these local, what is it called, men that chew, what is it called?
Man, you're the one there.
Okay, it's called what? Molondo,
Yes.
coffee seeds, all this stuff. So even in markets, there are hawkers. So it's more or less, I'm sorry, like this whole cluster of people, the government and its institutions, I don't think have done enough. And by institution, talk about like the KCCAs of this world. Now, when you say you're removing these guys from town, and you're buying them in another market, you're simply transferring the same routine. First and foremost, in my opinion, I think what government should be thinking of lately, and these other authorities, is to, one, formalize these people's business transactions. For example, how many people have registered businesses in Nakasero? These people, but someone, let's say every day makes sales of even 5 million. But how many people have registered businesses? Now, the reason for registering business with institutions like URSB is basically to also allow these institutions to make studies, but also later on to advise on how to run businesses. You see, when you look at these business setups of hawkers, who you want to call vendors, their businesses, the challenge they face is lack of formalization. We have failed to formalize this kind of work. Like we have failed to get a description. For example, when you say you want to send them in markets that are not occupied, like for example, he gave an example of the gears of this world.
Yes.
And I've been there many a times. The market is full of restaurants.
That's true.
People who only serve food from floor to floor and maybe a bit of charcoal down. And every other person.
And a few people selling groceries.
Some offices now.
You can imagine in a market. Probably that was part of the design anyway, but I don't know. But what I'm saying is that we need to sit down, get technocrats who can help make these businesses formal ventures, away from casual, informal ventures. Ondeseyo ensawo zange zalumonde bidi nzitulide ku street nencha. That can't be a way of life in a smart city you want. How do you help these people make their work more professional? Now, when you want to deal with issues of actual presence in terms of transactions, business transactions, there are alternatives. Chirawo talked about places where you don't have markets. Don't they buy food? How do you tap in? Like, you must assist to widen. That's what I'm saying. It is important that these authorities work on formalizing these people's businesses. Imagine if these people were given assistance in markets to make sales online. You can imagine. Wouldn't that reduce maybe by far a little congestion? Let's talk about delivery. But those things must come from the authorities, the bodies, because people don't have information. Many people in these sectors don't have the information. But let's talk about how, if you had a hawker, a would-be hawker, let's say who's selling groceries, and when they get them from maybe Wachiso, Semuto, Kapeka, wherever, they don't have to come and sit on the road, but you've empowered them to be able to move and deliver to their clientele. These are all options we can share in terms of reducing some of the, away from just saying, I remember one person in Kampala said that that's not a solution.
They have a reason why they left.
Are you trying to tell us you were born at City Hall? or you were birthed at City Hall? So all of us, having heard where we come from, we must have integrated solutions to this, because this is all our problem. Because between you and me, when these people earn, the economy is up and running. Our children or their children will go to schools. When they go to schools, other people are gaining. So instead of having this, we don't want you in the town. We don't want you in the town. Where and even building markets out of the in the suburbs, is it a solution? Because Robert told you, and that's the truth of the matter, that the clientele cannot move. The reverse is true. They can't move to these places, but them, Hannah, how do we make the would-be vendors and hawkers move to the clientele? We must empower them. We must assist them formalize the work they do. How? One, helping them register their businesses through because we have structures. The government has put structures. You have company registrars, you have all this URSB, actually just registering your business. You have the information there. There's money to support them. You can even put up a fund to assist them. You know, all these things.
Yes.
So we must find solution-based than all these building markets. I don't know the last time, and I can use ourselves here. How many times do you say you want to drive to Kaleri? You want to drive to Nakasero?
Yes.
Because one, you won't have parking. That's the first thing.
Jam.
Secondly, there's jam. But do you know how many people would happily subscribe to paying a delivery fee or someone to purchase online? And
yes.
But all these things, because they may not have the capacity and the knowledge. So they need agencies who have the research manuals, who have research institutions, research departments to help do the research. You're talking of chasing borders out of town. How about you utilize some of them that you're chasing out of town to make associations they can work with these hawkers? So let's find solutions around this whole thing than being rigid about you must go the smart city.
Well, to hear from you, Robert, now, much as the government is definitely in for this kind of plan, the Lord Mayor of Kampala City here, that is Arias Lukwago, the Honorable, he seems to be in total disagreement with this. Okay, he actually believes that the current regime, okay, that is at KCCA, that is in charge of trade order, has quite a systematic way of ensuring that there is organized street vending. Matter of fact, he went on to say that it is the duty of KCCA to make sure that they work out a mechanism of regulating these street vendors. But I mean, from what we have seen, even before we came up with the idea of relocating all these street vendors, has KCCA actually achieved that?
Well, most of the times the Lord Mayor does so much politicking, and sometimes I find it maybe it's one of his ways he has succeeded in retaining his office over time. He's a politician, fine.
Yes.
But I think sometimes you must put national interest beyond self. Unfortunately, most of our politicians don't draw the line that when is it time for politicking and when is it time for development.
They have failed at that.
Yesterday I was speaking to one trader. I was in some place, in some garage, and this lady told me, we were told not to pay licenses by the Lord Mayor some time back before he became a Lord Mayor. Now, those that said let's pay, they paid. Those that said we won't, finally they found themselves where they had to pay 2 years, and it was very costly for them. But this time I choose to agree with him. Why, Philo? That I'm going to give you two scenarios. Why this issue of vendors and hawkers, permanent places may not be the situation. The real idea. One, clientele. You see, every business, there's an art and a style.
Yes.
That keeps you floating when you're in business. So, how, if you're thinking of removing these people from their clients and putting them in isolation, we want to assume that a vendor who is working on where the city house, that street, or a vendor in downtown, any part of the city, that his clients, he will be able to find them in Kawempe. You get it? Which is relatively not. Because people in Kawempe go back to sleep. Most of them come to work in Kampala. And as they are moving home, you know, rushing to the park, rushing to get a border, they find this merchandise and they're able to purchase. So you're isolating him from the vendors. Felix talked of how do we get him to the clients. This is removing him from the clients. That's why you continuously have this enforcement spending so much in running battles. Away from only that problem, then we've had people who exploit any opportunity.
Yes. Recently,
His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, I think, made a directive regarding St. Bali Kudembe, what people call as Owino. Initially, people thought these stores belonged to the ordinary traders. A report, a research done, was even indicating big shots in government. One owns about 3-4 stores. So, the problem with implementation and evil, corrupted, minded, sometimes technocrats or politicians, that you're going to move. Government had a struggle when it came to Usafi. They purchased these stores,
yes,
only to find out that the people who owned these stores were not the ordinary vendors they wanted, or the traders they wanted. These were big shots who had their 3, 4, 5 stores, and these were paying rent to them. So away from will we get people to buy our commodities, even this implementation that you think a vendor will go to that market today. Then after a week he's told this place, you have to pay this amount of money. Because on the street maybe he's paying less. And you see in business all about maximizing profits.
So the rent charges are actually very unrealistic, you know, in line with what these people are.
There are two problems that we may not solve with permanent. That's why when the Lord Mayor comes up and says, how do we regulate? You know, even if you're going to be clear and say, okay, we've had about 20,000 vendors.
Yes.
We may not be able to have that 20,000 all in Kampala, but we can have specific gazette-specific places, specific streets, where maybe one would say, this is a bit inconveniencing, but not so inconveniencing, let me go and buy.
Yes.
We had weekend markets. I don't know if they're still there, because now I saw an unmotorized lane, where people knew that on Sunday, maybe it's a weekend, Sunday evening,
Sunday, actually, yeah, they saw Sunday as the only day because there were few people in the town.
So they come to town, they buy what they want to buy from their vendors, then they go back home. But permanent residents, yes, I hear them planning to spend more money, that every division gets a market like this. But who told you a vendor works in a division where they stay? And of what capacity are people in that division to purchase from that very vendor? So I think finding ways of regulating them, how they carry out their work, gazetting specific streets, because some developed countries even still have vendors. But you know that this lane, when you go there, you could be inconvenienced. There's proper parking for you. You drive, get what you want, go back. Easy and, of course, favorable to all people.
Well, now that we have also seen that, maybe just to hear from you, Felix, as we're trying to wrap this topic up, what are we looking at? What should be the bigger picture? Saying that now that actually Arias Lukwago is even asking government to add in more cash to construct several markets to make sure that all these people, all the vendors, they're all catered for. Even now that we've seen that the few markets that have already been constructed, I mean, when we are looking at the capacity or, you know, how well or how full they are, especially when it comes to having them occupied by these people, they're not really doing well. We are having quite very many empty stalls in there. So what is the way forward?
Well, way forward is just basically about, one, if you want, you need to make evaluation on how what you've spent on markets. How is it working? Has it given us value for our investment? And the definitely is no. It's no, it's evident. Even you may not have to launch in a deeper or the same. But we must engage. You see, for some of us who are scholars of project management, engagement with the beneficiaries or the relevant beneficiaries for that matter is key. Not necessarily because the technocrats don't know, but it's because they may not be in touch with what. But how many times does KCCA have engagements with these people about such things?
Yes.
Where you're placing the market. You must, he said that you must look at availability, accessibility, you know, the area, locality is also key, all these things. So I think there must be some sort of like engagement with the technocrats and the actual people who should be in these markets. But also, something quite keen to be interested in is we need to be honest to the people who are being affected, away from the politics, away from all this kind of dilly-dallying. We need to be very honest that we may agree. You see, in Uganda, we only look at professional jobs and formal jobs as scholarly-related jobs. When you go elsewhere in the world, a cobbler is a professional person. You will make an appointment, you will have to, you pay almost all these fees and what. And I think we should be moving to that kind of setup. We need to formalize. For me, it's about formalizing these so-called informal jobs or work.
Not waking up one day and decide to become a cobbler.
Yeah,
yes.
Because that's why Paul, you go to a salon.
Directorate now, Felix, Directorate of Industrial Training.
Yes,
trying to formalize this,
exactly.
Give them
so it should fast track. It should fast track. Now, if you're talking about people like you know, food is actually medicinal. Let me tell you, you're going to go and buy mangoes on the road where there are flies and what, and you'll get infections, you have all these things. All these things, we must put them into consideration. Away from just enforcing, we must also assist as we enforce. Let's give the people or the vendors, the hawkers, the people in markets the right information as the technocrats. Okay? You have people, for example, seasons. Like now we see very many mangoes, fruits. How do you assist these people in terms of storage? Away from just chasing them, how do they store these things? Because again, this is all making their work formal and professional. I think alongside enforcement, let's have some sort of advisory, some sort of advice, consultancy, but also helping them formalize their work because they will earn more. Imagine if all vendors in Nakasero had registered companies, they can easily get loans from banks. They can be in associations. They can assist themselves. You know, vendors can build their own markets. By the way, they have the capacity. You've seen it in Uganda. You saw people who used to be vendors. I think in Chiseka, something like that. You saw Shauriako, Gagawara, all these. So how do we empower? Away from these continuous handouts that are political, the president bought for us, the president gave us, the mayor said this. Now, the mayor can't allow a presidential project to go on, definitely, in the kind of status we have in Kampala. He will come and tell you, but even if, so, let's empower the people. The solution is in empowering these people. When they are empowered both with knowledge, financial ability, but later on also relevant knowledge for them to formalize their work. For me, I think if their work is formal, they can trade on phone, they have companies, they can, you know, it's easy. That's what I think.
Just my concluding remarks. Over a time, I've been analyzing some of the problems we have at the country. We know solutions, and we can have the solutions. But the problem has always been us implementing Tufunira Mowa. Felix has given very good recommendations, but the problem is those don't have procurement, those don't have contracts. Building a market has a lengthy period of benefits. So people move away from practical, simple solutions, and we go to solutions where we know who is going to get this contract, going to get this tender, who is how much, who are we buying cement from. So sometimes money blinds us from fighting quick, simple solutions. You must put national interest beyond self.
Then
we have to cut out the bureaucratic tendencies.
That's a problem for
we
the
have
government.
to cut out
all the governments deal with it.
Your proposals are good,
problem.
but who people this plan? What do they bring on their table? What do they bring on their
this
table?
is quite a topic that we will
market.
talk about for days and days and days. But at the end of the day, it would be a dream come true, especially for very many Ugandans, if we achieve a smart city without having to inconvenience a certain, party to all these vendors need the business, hawkers need the business, but even the clients, the customers, they need all these people. So we actually need each other. The solution is to get a middle ground, but how are we going to get to the middle ground? Now, that is the question we'll leave to the government, who really have a bigger and an upper hand in all this. We are yet to find that out, and we hope we can only get positive responses. Now, in the long term, it all works. We'll be getting into the press review to see the big stories in our dailies, the New Vision, the Daily Monitor, and to our friends over there in Kenya, what's happening in the Daily Nation. Good morning.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves. High-flying saves. Unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Go TV. Love it.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Shareable using Tugabane. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
their killers wanted guns. This is according to the IGP, and they're showing you the crackdown how a joint security force was last night combing neighborhoods in and outside Luwero town following an afternoon attack at a traffic checkpoint in which a police officer was killed and another injured by a machete wielding gang who police say they wanted the rifles. In more stories in the Daily Monitor, Mao's minister move means nothing for Ugandans. This is according to Colonel Kiza Besije. And security deployed as fuel demos rock ginger. Now you can get the full force on all these demonstrations that are happening. Top Russian envoy visits Uganda amid Ukraine war. Other stories, of course, don't miss out. The face shields offer little protection against COVID, according to a certain research that has come out. And taking through a look at the cattle corridor cracks under the heat of a dry spell. Clearly, we are still under the effects of climate change and weather. Now, catch all these stories in the Daily Monitor. And moving on to the second page of the paper, taking you back in history today. The U.S. postal system is established. The year was 1775. Also in history, Liberian independence was proclaimed and the year was 1847. These and many more stories in the Daily Monitor.
Well, the New Vision also takes you through a story right there, how car robberies are planned in prison. That is detailed on page 7. Also in the law, Administrator General explains succession law. Those are also details on page 6, 12 to 13 of the New Vision for this morning. But the big headline right there, tough new rules on land registration as ministry intends to stop land title fraud. That is also on page 8 of the New Vision. They give you a picture right there of Museveni as he campaigns for Sorority City East NRM candidate. And of course, details on that story are also on page 3 of the New Vision. Now, the Panga thugs attack, kill policeman at Roadblock. Details are on page 7. Also, electro body police clash over arrested Venezuelans. That is on page 32. But more also as First Lady cautions against immorality. That is a detailed story on page 6 of the New Vision.
In the Daily Monitor Sports, Chalimo silences doubters. Of course, we're talking about the Oregon 22 Worlds in the men's 5,000 meters final results. And Cheptegei, Rue's hamstring. Again, another story you shouldn't miss out. Now, also taking you through the World Championships, Nigerian Amusan sets new world record. Toby Amson shatters the 100-meter hurdles world record to claim gold on final day in Oregon. Now, the story is on page 39 of the Daily Monitor.
Well, the New Vision also, of course, leads off with a story about Oscar Chelimo as he's holding his bronze right there, saying, you know what, this is coming from me, not Cheptegei as you expected. They were wrong for expecting Cheptegei to take that bronze medal. Well, that is him talking about his success, and of course there are details in that. The World Athletic Championship Oregon 2022 still going on. The performance milestones so far, they are put out for you right there in the New Vision Sport for this morning, and many more of those sports stories in the paper for today.
Daily Nation, this Tuesday morning, Decision 2022. We are less than 15 days to the elections. To be very specific, we're just looking at 13 days. The big standoff. Will Raila show up? Of course, there is still the chance that, like Dr. Ruto before him, Mr. Odinga will ignore bad advice and agree to take part. Okay, well, that's a story you also need to catch up. First off, if Azimio La Umoja candidate Raila Odinga makes good his threat to skip the presidential debate tonight, he will be forced to counter claims that he chickened out at the prospect of going head-to-head against Kenya Kwanza's William Ruto. Now, this is going to be a hot debate, I must tell you, and you need to be on the lookout for. Nippy Bridge bus crash, the ones we lost, and they're showing you some headshots of some of the deceased that Kenya lost in the accident. Again, continuous reminder that you have to be very careful on the roads. And the search for a perfect body in healthy nation. Again, another article you ought not to miss. And there is also a special report for you, Rigathi Gachagua and the making of Mr. Money Bags. All that and many more in the Daily Nation this morning. Before we head to the roads, just to remind you of our poll question, where we really want you to tell us what can actually be done to deal with the rising commodity prices as citizens threaten to demonstrate. What can be done to deal with the rising commodity prices as, of course, citizens are threatened to demonstrate? You could always go in for the hashtag UBCGMU, or you can send us your message on 0709-602-592. Now, this is the number that could definitely work out for WhatsApp. You could also use it to send us a traditional text message. We'll be able to see it. But this morning, looking at the traffic situation, I want to focus on areas in Kawempe division. So if you're coming in from areas of Chebando, coming in from areas of Komamboga, areas of Mulago, Kamochas, you're trying, of course, to head towards the city center. Well, I could say that it actually looks quite busy this morning because several parts on these roads, in this division, are actually very busy. Now, if you're coming in from Komambog, of course, headed towards the city center, you would have to use Chebando and get through to Mulago. But there is also a shortcut. You could decide to use the Bahai Road to connect all the way till Ntinda. And again, that is a road that is quite also busy this morning. And the only getaway could actually be the shortcut. But I feel like it would be no work done, especially if you're using it to cut out the traffic. Chebando also this morning is quite busy, and several spots on that specific road, of course, as you're trying to connect all the way till Mawanda Road is also busy. So there are very many road users. I must say there is a lot of patience that needs to be exercised over there. Now, when you cross over to Mawanda Road, of course, as you're joining the Old Chera Road, to cut across, either to cross to Mulago or to use the John Babiha Road, again, I want to say that it's not exactly exciting news because the road is so busy. Matter of fact, we have cars coming in from Tinda, we have cars coming in from several other parts trying to use the same road to get to the city center. Now, whether you use Mulago through to Wandegeya to Kampala Road, I could say that you're in for quite some heavy traffic. And again, if you decide to use the John Babiha Road as you're crossing over to Yusuf Lule Road and to finally join the main road, I could say again you're in for some heavy traffic. So this morning, I could say that it may be a little bit hard for you to navigate around these areas because they're very busy. But the situation could actually change any minute now. Could be, in a good way or in a more intensified way. So yes, plan accordingly if you haven't left your home. And if you have already left and you're already neat, well, you have got to be in it patiently to make sure that you reach your destination safe and sound. That's it from the traffic updates this morning. But getting to the weather and climate change, there is a story I stumbled upon and it was quite interesting. Again, I will continue reminding you and thanking everyone who is giving special attention to all this climate change. And now, Molen, I must say that seeing the climate change as a topic is getting into the world of sports. I am so excited. There is this team I saw, I think it's called Reading. It's a football club, and they were unleashing their new jersey, and it had quite some climatic marks on it. I don't know if they were trying to send a message. What are we looking at? The sports world really heavily getting involved in climate change and the advocacy. Isn't this a big deal?
It is a big deal, Philomena, seeing that Reading Football Club is actually going on with the climate message. Now, what they have done is actually, unveil their new kit for the jerseys. And let me tell you one thing before we get into all those details. There has been this whole talk about, buying jerseys for men. And now, I did not consider it until Reading FC. Now I can consider buying someone a jersey. And I think Ruben should be one of those people, I could consider buying a jersey for, because this particular one actually has climate information. Now, what they have done is they have actually just put up the warming stripes. Now, these have been, a campaign on showing how much there has been warming across the world. Wow. Now, for them, they have taken it to the year when Reading FC actually started, that is back in 81.
Yes.
Now until now, that's how much Reading has been warming. So they have put this, across, their charts showing how much the temperatures have been rising over the area. And I can tell you, it's both for the men's team and the women's team.
Wow.
And for me, I was really impressed. It looks beautiful, and of course they're spreading the message. That is something that is worth buying someone's son a jersey.
I hope Uganda Cranes is writing down some notes.
Yes, this is where we should be headed, because we do have the warming stripes actually for Uganda as well.
Yes.
You did see me putting up a campaign that was on the 26th, where all scientists across the world were giving up the campaign. Every country has these warming stripes. It's up to us to see how to spread that message, and I think we can take an example of Reading FC. So Philomena, I think now if someone is not wearing
somebody's son is lucky. Somebody's son could be lucky. I don't know, this season, they could get themselves quite a jersey that has some good information over there. Well, I will now leave you officially to Molen to give you more about weather and climate change. Otherwise, have a very productive Tuesday morning. Good morning. I am Philomena Masco.
Well, thank you very much, Philomena. And of course, going on with the climate information, you look at the fact that people, yes, are coming out to say, this is what is happening. Obviously, we're warming up. And recently we saw President Museveni also explaining what is, fueling into climate change. You look at the effects of the emissions that are being taken into the atmosphere. Now, we are increasing carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. And of course, that is one thing that has fueled up all the heat, because what this gas does is it traps all the heat, and now it leaves a blanket of heat within, the atmosphere. That's why we're seeing, increasing levels of temperatures. We're seeing increasing all these effects of wildfires and heat waves. And that is, goes so far to indicate what has been happening also recently across the world. Now, we follow up on the California oak fires that have been raging over the area. And so far, it is indicating that 16,000 acres that is near the national park right there in California have been, were destroyed by these wildfires. And of course, this started earlier over the weekend. And what we're seeing right now is that this could actually be taking on more hectares of land as they look at California's worst heat time, especially when you look at these wildfires. Now, at least 3,000 people have been forced to evacuate their homes due to this fire. That is according to the new release that officially came out, showing us the status of these fires from Friday into Saturday. That is also from Sierra Nevada. They are indicating more than 2,500 personnel are battling the fire, which is 10% contained for now, but it looks like the 90% is still on rampage and could be taking on more hectares of land that is across the U.S. And of course, this comes at a time where we're reading a story this morning about, President Joe Biden wanting to declare a climate emergency over the U.S. And of course, what he is talking about is the fact that, he has not gotten enough support from Congress, especially moving his renewable energy agenda, but also looking into the reality of what is happening into the U.S. in terms of extreme weather events. This comes at a time where he now has to decide as a president whether to declare it as an emergency, and maybe then he can get enough support, especially when you look into the fact that Congress has not been very supportive of all the agendas that he put across, moving on from the Trump administration that had, dumped a lot of all the actions on climate change. Now, the fact that the U.S. has been dealing with most of these extreme weather events, I say it's about time that he does that, because then that will prompt a lot of, industries, all the companies that he's calling upon to go renewable to actually do that, because at that point it will not be only a decision of Congress. If he declares a climate emergency, they will have no option but also move into the agendas of him, moving for climate action. And he has been doing that across many strategies that he has been putting across, especially in terms of moving the U.S. towards a climate neutral future. But also what we're seeing still coming in from China is that they have more areas also dealing with extreme heat. And of course, there has been a lot of talks, especially with China being one of the contributors to the problem at hand. That is the climate crisis. They are one of the two biggest emitters, talking about the US and China. Now, China has had several heat warnings that were issued. Almost 70 Chinese cities were on alerts, and with temperatures expected to go above 40 degrees Celsius. That is according to the Chinese Meteorological Agency. The report came out yesterday, coming in from the meteorologists there, saying that they could be looking at over 70 Chinese cities still under heat warning. And of course, they are looking at more temperatures to 35 degrees Celsius that they were recording yesterday. That means that everywhere, even outside, people are now resorting to moving with mobile control, the kind of mobile fans that they have to move with, just to keep themselves in balance. Otherwise, it is too hot over there. Temperatures are rising, and the latest heat wave, which is defined as a period of typically hot weather lasting 3 days or more, could be expected over China. And of course, the Meteorological Agency also says that according to the daily temperatures, the highest to this level was recorded in 1961. But again, on Saturday, that is 13th this year, the National Weather Station in some provinces of China were reporting contrary. That means breaking some of these temperature records, and they could be looking at a much more severe heat waves that we have seen, especially across Europe, and China could be bracing itself up for something like that. Of course, we have seen threats of heatwave warnings also across the US. It looks like most of these economies, the biggest emitters that we have always talked about, are seeing the reality of what is happening, especially in terms of climate extremes. And of course, that is where we're now calling for more action. Yes, we do have high anticipations for COP27 that is due in November in Egypt. But we do know that these are the two nations, the US and China, have been, promising a lot, especially with helping with climate action for developing countries. And most of those pledges were not made. We do hope that COP27 is one way for them to look at making good on their promises, because they're also seeing the reality of, climate effects. Now, the only challenge at that is that with such a big economy, they are able to cope at a certain point. But if such extremes were to come to, developing countries, you look at island nations, you look at Africa, most of the countries in Africa, it would be very hard to deal with. It would be catastrophic. People would be dying, which is why we continue to ask for them to pledge to help us cope with the changing environment. And that is something that we could be looking at also as we head towards COP27. But also we see more of extreme weather events coming through, and yesterday there were reports of one of the Pakistan's largest cities battling torrential rains as climate crisis makes weather more unpredictable. We're looking at more flooding in Pakistan, and of course this was taking in most areas across the city. And now we're talking about mostly the Islamabad, that is across Pakistan, one of the cities right there in Karachi that has suspended businesses, and most businesses have closed across the city due to a deadly flash flooding that has damaged infrastructure. And of course, at least more of the damages that came through were reported after the rain started, meaning that they were they were as extreme. And of course, what we do know so far is that at least 15 people have died due to these floods that started on Saturday. And of course, Sunday night, more than the reports that are coming through are showing that more than 60 millimeters of rainfall were recorded in Karachi, that is across Pakistan, equivalent to the entire month worth of rainfall. Imagine a rainfall that would fall within the whole month, raining on a same day. And of course, that is what prompted even more extremes, especially reporting that number of people who died during these floods. Now, for several months, Pakistan has been dealing with most of these heavy monsoon rains. However, at least it has been getting intense, because at the start, we did see even at the start of the monsoon season in June, they were battling a lot of floods, but also the strategies that were put across to avert the crisis were not enough, which is why we're still seeing more flooding in the cities, and of course with potential damage to infrastructure infrastructure, and of course reporting that number of people dying. Now, so far we also know that since the monsoon season began across Pakistan, more than 300 people have been affected, and of course also reporting that more than 300 people have died due to heavy rains across Pakistan. That is just since June. Looking at how much intense it has been over there, more than 300 people is a big number. And that's why we keep saying most of these are going to be deadly. Most of these extreme events are going to be, are going to affect most of these countries. You look at heat waves in Europe, but you also consider the droughts have been affecting most areas, especially in African nations. Now we do know that most of the areas that have been worst hit in East Africa, look at Somalia, you look at the drought crisis in Karamoja, and of course the cattle corridor. Today morning we're reading a story about, the farmers that are also, complaining of these dry spells that are affecting their cattle right here in Uganda. So this is how far we could go when it comes to extremes within the climate change arena. But well, we also know that most of the big people have been called upon to act. We do know that most of the companies that have been coming up to especially promise us most of the climate neutral strategies. And we have seen Elon Musk actually coming up to say he's written for climate neutral, but again he's investing in most of these companies that are not climate neutral. Well, just last week most of the NGOs have been writing to Elon Musk asking him to not invest in one of Indonesia's companies that is worrying especially on their environmental plans. Now, according to most of the NGOs that have written, actually over 20 of them writing to Elon Musk urging the Tesla CEO to not invest in one of Indonesia's industries that is due to the environmental concerns. Now they are saying that following what their president in Indonesia was saying that Elon Musk is going to invest in the country and they are looking at it as a good investment. However, they are concerned that this is not in line with their climate action, and of course they are dismissing his investment. Of course, at this level, now that it has gotten to this, Elon Musk is yet to respond to that, and we don't know so far whether he will be continuing with that investment, because at this point, looking at the reality of climate change, it would be, it would be a wrong decision for him to continue with most of these investments. Well, we do like when people come, such big names come and invest in your country, but how are they investing? Whatever they are investing, is it good for your environment? That should be the first concern before even okaying them to invest in your country. Well, away from that, we also want to come back home here and take a look at whether it's happening across the country. We will be tapping in from our satellites, giving us real-time data for what is happening over the country. It looks like we're starting off with quite a cloudy morning across mostly eastern Uganda, crossing over towards northern Uganda as well. The western sector also dealing with a little bit of those clouds. Now we could be having rains later in the day, but also that will be most especially across parts of western Uganda, southwestern Uganda. Otherwise, the rest of the country is dealing with mostly a sunny morning. Looks like generally we are having mostly intervals of sunny cloudy conditions. But looking into our forecast for this morning that is coming through from the Uganda National Meteorological Authority, we are looking at some of those conditions actually changing throughout much of the day. We could be having rains for several places. Now the forecast does indicate isolated showers that will be across the eastern part of Lake Victoria, where we have Tororo, Busia, Iganga and Jinja. We are starting off with a warm morning at 27 degrees centigrade. Now we look at southwestern Uganda, where we're forecasting a mix of clouds and sunshine. That will also be starting off with quite a hot morning at 27 degrees centigrade. We do expect similar weather in the afternoon, and temperatures could be rising up to 129 later as the day goes on. Now looking at Mount Elgon Highlands, that is where we have Mbale, Bududa, Buko and Sironko. We're forecasting isolated showers, starting off with quite a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade. We do expect that system to cross over into the afternoon. Across the western part of Lake Victoria, that is where we have Masaka, Kalisizo, Zimbabwe and Rakai. We're forecasting isolated showers that will be across several places. We already have clouds that are starting to develop over that area, and we'll be starting off with a warm morning at 27 degrees centigrade, and most of those systems will redevelop in the afternoon. That is across western Lake Victoria. Now, crossing over to eastern Uganda, where we have Soroti, Katakwi, Amoria, and Kumi, we are forecasting isolated showers that will also be starting off with a warm 27 degrees centigrade, and of course that will be clearing later in the afternoon for mostly sunny intervals. Now, the eastern part of central, that is where we have Ruwero, Woblenzi, Bururi, Nakaseke, we're forecasting isolated showers as well. We already have those clouds that are starting to develop over the area. Now, that will be starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade, and of course we do expect similar systems later in the afternoon as well. The central part of northern Uganda, where we have Jumani, Gulu, Kitgum and Badel, we're forecasting light showers. We already have clouds over there as well that will be coming in with rainy conditions later as the morning progresses, starting off with a warm 28. Now, across the central part of Lake Victoria, where we have Kampala, Mukono, Entebbe and Wakiso, we are forecasting those light rains that will be across several places. Also later as we head into the afternoon, starting off with a pleasant 26 degrees centigrade over there. We do expect some of those systems to also cross over into the afternoon. Now, generally, we're looking at most of these rainy conditions developing, especially across the western stretch of the country, as well as Lake Victoria Basin, northern Uganda as well. But we might be continuing with mostly dry weather that is across most areas within central as we cross over into the afternoon as well. But most of those systems are being affected by some of the pressure systems forming over the Indian Ocean. But as those systems start to move away, we could be looking at a clearing trend, especially in terms of pickup in wet weather conditions, especially for northern Uganda, as well as parts of the central where we're seeing mostly rainy conditions. Well, that is it in terms of weather for this morning. My name is Molin Kenyana. We do have Uganda, Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Later than that, we'll also be going in for sports highlights. And of course, later than that, we'll be going for Good Morning Uganda Extra. I want to wish you a wonderful day.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard super easy.
I remember the lockdown, when the streets were empty and our lives disrupted, when businesses closed and our livelihoods hung in the balance. Hospitals were full. We lost loved ones, jobs, and hope. Our children couldn't study anymore. We cannot let this happen again. We should not go back. Get fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and join the millions of Ugandans who are already vaccinated.
World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves. High-flying saves. Unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration. All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Gold TV, love it.
Welcome to English in a Minute. This is a weasel. These wild animals are small and tricky.
Wow, Anna. Looks like you could use some help. Let me carry that.
Thanks, Jonathan. I can always count on you. Jessica, not so much.
She weaseled out of helping you again, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She's a weasel.
To weasel out of something means to successfully avoid doing something in a dishonest or clever way. This phrasal verb has a mostly negative meaning. You can also call someone a weasel, like Anna did. Some animals just have a bad reputation. And that's English in a Minute.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN cupboard. That's super easy.
I remember the lockdown, when the streets were empty and our lives disrupted, when businesses closed and our livelihoods hung in the balance. Hospitals were full. We lost loved ones, jobs, and hope. Our children couldn't study anymore. We cannot let this happen again. We should not go back. Get fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and join the millions of Ugandans who are already vaccinated.
A World Cup in the desert? The first one in the Middle East. The first to be held at the end of the year? That's crazy. Get ready for spectacular moves. High-flying saves. Unbelievable goals. Out of this world celebration.
Would you believe it? What a moment here!
All 64 matches live. That's over 5,000 action-packed minutes of the FIFA 2022 World Cup Qatar. Now that's crazy. Catch all the action only on SuperSport, your world of champions. On Gold TV, love it.
This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios. This is Good Morning Uganda.
is a cool morning, and thank you for keeping it with us here on Good Morning Uganda UBC TV. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda, where we look at issues of national concern with a guest or guests in studios, and you're able to be part of the topic of discussion by simply giving us feedback on our various social media platforms. Once again, I'm Robert Chiraponyonyitono. It is exactly 8, and I'm sure wherever you are, you can watch us, you can carry us with you on your laptop, on your smartphone, because we are on YouTube. You can watch, you can rewind, you can forward. Well, good news coming in is Russia's Foreign Affairs Minister has arrived in the country, and he's here for bilateral relations. He arrived last night, and we've just received information of this guest with whom we believe so much is going to be discussed between him and, of course, Uganda here for more cooperation and bilateral relations. But away from that, we are going to be discussing yet another issue of national interest this morning that is no longer a problem of Uganda alone, but now also an issue that has gone global. And now Uganda is no longer one of the areas where this problem is really big, but it's being used as a transit point for this problem. What are we discussing? That is poaching and illegal trade or illegal wildlife trade. What we refer to, many of these protected animals, people go into these protected zones or gazetted areas, kill them, and their aim is not only to sell the meat, to eat the meat, but to sell those precious body parts that they contain. More often, more profound is the elephant, the ivory. And when I remember very well in 2011, 2013, this was when Uganda, this problem was at its peak. In 2011, we lost about 28 elephants a year in one single year, 28 elephants. Now someone just wants ivory, but has to take the entire elephant. 2013, we lost 20 elephants due to poaching. As we speak, tremendous improvement have been done, and we don't lose now. We lose less than 5 elephants a year due to poaching. Now, joining me on set to discuss this is the Director, Field Operations, that is Uganda Wildlife Authority, Charles Tumwesije. You're most welcome.
Good morning, Chirabo, and good morning, viewers. It's nice to be here on UBC to talk about this important topic, poaching and illegal wildlife trade. So it's good to be here.
It's a pleasure having you once again.
Thank you.
On this show. Now, let's start by understanding when we talk about poaching in a layman's language, because I've come to realize that many people are poachers and they are not aware.
Yes.
Most so, I don't want to call them traditional hunters. Would I use the word local hunters? Some will even tell you, but these are animals that God gave us. You know, going and eating, how do you make it a problem? So what is poaching in a layman's definition?
So poaching, actually, as you rightly said, poaching is a foreign term. To simplify it, I would say poaching is the illegal killing of wildlife. So if you kill wildlife without authorization, without a license, that's what the colonialists brought it as poaching. Traditionally, we know that our great-grandfathers used to hunt animals because they were in plenty, and we knew it as hunting. But with time, of course, the animals reduced, the animals were restricted to protected areas, and some laws of protecting them were put in place so that they can be protected. Now, if you kill the wildlife when you are not authorized to kill it, especially in a protected area or even outside the protected area, because this wildlife is protected wherever it is. So when you take it out without authorization, that is what we call poaching. So one can say poaching is hunting that is not legalized or that is not official.
Well, still making things more interesting, Director. Now, when you talk about even those that are not in gazetted places, someone has a forest or a bush and they tell you there is an antelope. You know, some of these people know how even just to look through, they'll tell you a warthog passed here. Someone will tell you maybe a buffalo. either escaped or we have some areas where these animals are still there.
Yes.
And so these communities gather, then they get this buffalo. As UWA, where do you draw that mandate then to come and tell them that this buffalo that you killed, you committed an offense, and therefore this is what the law says?
So Chirabo, I'm a Christian. So I will start with the Bible. And the mandate, the main mandate for protecting these creatures actually comes from the Bible. The Bible, when God created the world, He created man, He created the universe, He created the wildlife, He created things and put them in this world to be there. So everything that was created for a purpose. So yes, that wildlife may be on your land, but it is not there to be killed just like that. It is there to be protected. It was created for a reason. So, and because unlike human beings, for us we have intellect, we can differentiate what is good from what is bad. So you can be told that this, don't do this. Now the wildlife, the animals, the plants, they don't have that intellect. So somebody has to do it for them. And so man has to protect this wildlife. This wildlife, the man has to protect trees. Man has to, so in order to protect this wildlife, you need some kind of regulations, you need some kind of laws. Otherwise it would be chaos. If anybody who sees an animal crossing just kills it, then you would create a problem, because as you will notice that these creatures, each one has an important role it plays in an ecosystem. If there were no animals, if there were no plants, how would the world look like? And so that's why we say yes, they may be a source of meat, they may be a source of food, but we need to regulate it. We need to regulate to ensure that the offtake is in a way that there is balance in nature. And as I said, because nobody talks for these animals, somebody has to do it. And incidentally, for Uganda, we have a body that has been mandated by government to protect the wildlife, to guide the people who want to use wildlife on how best they can do it sustainably, so that we do not lose this wildlife, and that is Uganda Wildlife Authority. So yes, you might have this wildlife, it may not be in a protected area, but it is protected by God. And so, since it doesn't have the means to protect itself, somebody has to do it. And that's why it needs to be protected, and if one is to utilize it, then there must be a mechanism in which this utilization is done. So if you don't follow the mechanism, then you become a poacher. And that's where poaching comes from.
Okay, well explained, well said. God's mandate, the law, and an institution like UWA. Now, Director, let's also understand, before you even nail it harder in poaching, are there provisions that people can enjoy some of these animals, not for purposes of selling whatever it is, but maybe for eating? For example, many times I've come across areas where they talk about game meat being sold. I've seen this when you move abroad. They even have this on their menu. You have game meat. Even here, I know of some places.
Yes.
You go to Arua Park. This. I know of some high-end restaurants, hotels, where there's that game meat. Of course, a bit expensive, but it exists. So how does this get to these restaurants? Are there ways where you can license people?
Yes. So as we mentioned from the beginning, hunting is an old activity. It is a historical activity which was done by our great-grandfathers and the kings. They used it to hunt. So hunting is an activity. And we know that this wildlife, if you just keep, even if you have cows or goats, you can't just keep them forever. You need to make use of them. So there is a way that people can make use of this wildlife sustainably, either as food, you can use it for tourism, recreation, and other ways. Now, for you to be able to use wildlife, especially in outside protected areas, we have provisions within the law called the wildlife use rights. You can trade in wildlife trade. There is legal trade, and then there is illegal trade. So legal trade is that one where you are licensed and you are given a quota that yes, you can collect so much, breed it, and sell. or you can even collect and sell. So there is a use right called trade. There is a use right called farming. You can farm wildlife actually. We have a crocodile farm in Buwama.
I know the reptile farm
exactly
around Entebbe Road.
Yes, you can ranch. You can ranch wildlife if you have a big area like in Nakasongora where you have big chunks of land. You can actually fence off your land and keep wildlife there as a ranch, just like you can have a cattle ranch. So you can get a license for ranching. You can also hunt. You can get a license for hunting, and that is the legal hunting. But of course there are other regulations on how you do hunting and what you can hunt and what you cannot hunt. You can use wildlife for education purposes. If you create a zoo like Kavumba Recreation Center, Chiwatre Recreation Center, you can actually apply for a license and have wildlife for people to come for education purposes. You can use wildlife for recreation, for tourism. You can use wildlife as a pet. Some people have parrots.
Monkeys?
Well, monkeys, not so much, but yes, you can use wildlife as pets. There is that license, use right. And then you can, there is what you call general extraction, especially for plants. Because people forget when we talk about wildlife that it is mainly animals, but it is also about plants. People use plants for medicine, traditional medicine, and for weaving, for so many things. So you can, we have a license, a use right for general extraction, where you can use wildlife as an extractive material to do handcraft, to do medicine, and so many things. So yes, you can get a license. The provisions of the law are there. Now the beauty of having a license is that when you are licensed, one, you are registered. So we are able to know who is utilizing wildlife and in which way. Then you are regulated. If it is hunting, we are able to say our elephants are endangered. They were hunted, they are few. So we should not hunt elephants. What should we hunt? We can hunt those animals that are in Prente, those that exist outside protected areas. So we regulate that. We give a quota. A quota is like how many can you take? Then we have regulations. What should you hunt? For example, you should not hunt a female. You should not have. You should not hunt a young one. You should not hunt a pregnant female, for example. Otherwise, you are killing so many. So when you are hunting, those are regulations. You should hunt an adult male, which is no longer contributing to the gene pool in the population. It has already been chased away from the herd. So that one is okay to take. And so when we do licensing, we put in place regulations, and what we are doing is we are doing what we call sustainable utilization. Sustainability means that you can use and it remains, and somebody in the future also uses. Now the difference with the hunting, the other illegal hunting or poaching, is that there is the element of unsustainability is not there.
Whatever comes your way.
You have people laying nets, and the nets will grab anything, whether young, whether old, whether pregnant or what, they just take. If you lay a trap, whatever falls in, you just take. So that is the difference. When you are doing the legal one, you are interested in a trophy, for example, you are interested in the head of a buffalo or a skin of a zebra. That is your interest. So the best skin is from that animal that has really grown, not a young one. Because a young one, the skin is still young. So that is the difference. And we encourage Ugandans. They can come to Uganda Wildlife Authority. We guide them on how they can get licenses. Even for hunting, by the way, local hunting. People think that it is difficult, it is cumbersome, but yes, you know, if you want to do things in the right way, you have to be inconvenienced, but to do it the better way. So yes, we can license people for hunting, local people. We can license people for breeding, farming wildlife, for ranching, and all these sorts of things, so that they can get involved, they can earn money, because it is a business. When you do it that way, it becomes a business, and you improve your livelihood.
And now, Director, let's be more specific into poaching. Of course, why I wanted that background is for people to understand that there are other ways to enjoy this wildlife. You know, to maneuver this nation that animals are more precious than even people in our country. So because they feel they either have to commit an offense, yet there is a a proper way of doing things. Now, let's go to poaching. Mostly poachers, and we are looking at these that do it for commercial purposes and are targeting specific animals because of some of their body parts, where we see elephants are the most, I think, privileged. I mean, unfortunate animals to be liked by poachers because of their ivory. How big is the problem for Uganda's case?
Poaching is actually a very big challenge for Uganda, for all countries, especially in Africa. You will recall that Uganda actually was doing very well in the 60s in terms of wildlife populations in the protected areas and also tourism, because this wildlife, especially the one in protected areas, this is what brings our tourists here. I think 90% or more than 80% of the tourists that come to view our wildlife. So in the 70s, you know what happened? We went into a period of civil wars and a lot of poaching, a lot of guns brought by the Tanzanians, but also by the freeing Idi Amin soldiers, turned into animals, and most of our wildlife, particularly the big five are the elephants. We used to have rhinos in the protected areas. The rhinos were wiped out completely, extinct. We have brought them back, of course. They are in the sanctuary and the zoo. We are planning to put them in the national parks, but they are wiped out. Our elephant population, which was about 60,000, I think 60,000 in the 60s, went down to 1,000. It went up to 1,000 by 1986. We've now recovered that to close to 8,000 elephants, which is very good, but it is still lower than what we used. I think we used not 60 but 30,000 elephants in the 60s. So you see, we still have a long way to go. And all that was due to commercial poaching. People were killing these elephants for the ivory. And we don't know what they do with ivory, but we hear the rich people want to use it as jewelry. They make a lot of good carvings and put them in their sitting room, especially in Asia and in America, where they have a big carving industry. And then the rhino horns, of course, rhinos were poached for the rhino horns. We hear that they use rhino horn in medicine, Chinese medicine. We don't know how true that is. It has not been
Traditional
proven.
healers also run after them so much.
It has not been proven scientifically, but that is the feeling. So yes, commercial poaching was a problem, and it remained a problem, as you rightly said when you were starting. Around 2011, we saw a peak in elephant poaching in Uganda, particularly when we lost about 28 elephants, and that continued up to 2013. But we also started seeing a lot of ivory that was coming through Uganda and being confiscated in Asia. And when they trace it, you find it has been shipped from Uganda. And that's how we learned that Uganda was actually used as a conduit, because we are losing 28 elephants. Yes, that is still a big number, but not a very big number. 28 elephants will have maybe 40-something tusks. So even if they are heavy, that would be maybe 1 ton or 2 tons. But we are seizing ivory to the tune of 6 tons today, the next day, next week. So meaning that ivory was coming from other countries and passing through Uganda and being exported. So we had a big problem between 2011 and 2013. It was discussed at an international conference called CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Uganda was sanctioned because together with Kenya, Tanzania, and other countries, and we went into soul searching. What do we do to be able to control poaching and to control this illegal wildlife trade, which was giving the country a bad name? And I think we have brought it down. We still have subsistence poaching that is happening in our protected areas. Commercial poaching has gone down, especially poaching using guns to kill elephants. We have a few cases. We will get 5, not more than, say, 8 cases in a year in all the protected areas. So I think we have done well. We've put in place measures. We've improved our law. Initially, our law was very weak. One would be arrested and taken and fined 200,000. For those who are trafficking in ivory and you are caught, you would lose the ivory and then go and pay a fine of 1 million. So all that has been captured in the revised law. The penalties are now stringent. We have deployed more intelligence staff into the parks. We have brought in the canine unit. I know you when I talk about canine, especially you get stimulated.
No, because it delivers. I was impressed when you go at our airport.
Yes.
We have very good sniffer dogs.
Yes.
I must commend that is UA for that proper canine unit. Very good sniffer dogs. At least I'm very passionate about that. And I recognize that, yes, these dogs knew what they were doing. When you go to Karuma,
yes,
you know, there's a canine unit there, Ugandans. And I enter testing these dogs, they're up to the game.
Yes.
Who are you doing a very good job, because I'm sure you can hardly pass with Ivory or any of these in these two centers. But also, Director, we usually notice that Uganda, we've managed to have tremendous steps. But I don't stand to be corrected. I've come to notice that it seems most of this ivory now, this illicit trade that is happening, either comes from Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. Most of these, I want to believe that, but I stand to be corrected. So what are these? Do we have an East African community? Those are many, but what are we doing at that level? Because some of our animals cross over to those areas still. You know, for them, they don't know boundaries.
Yeah.
And if when they go to those parts, we may be losing them. So what are we doing at that level?
So it is true, as I mentioned, that we realized that Uganda was being used as a conduit, and most of the ivory we are seizing was either coming from Congo or passing through Congo, and more recently through South Sudan. But surprisingly, we have also seized ivory from Tanzania, from Burundi. Burundi doesn't have elephants, interestingly, but they have a stockpile of ivory that they have been hoarding since the 70s. And I think that stockpile somehow found its way into the illegal market. And we have seized ivory from that stockpile because it is audited, it is inventoried by CITES. And so yes, now at the East African community level, we've developed the East African wildlife, East African community wildlife management strategy. We've also developed the anti-poaching and anti-trafficking strategy. And now, you know, East Africa, we are having a collaboration between the countries. So we are looking at harmonizing our policies, looking at collaboration and coordination, so that if we have these poachers, because you have poachers who can come from Congo, kill and run back, from Sudan, kill and run back. But that strategy provides a mechanism for us to collaborate with our counterparts in other areas, so that we are able to share intelligence and we are able to follow up if there are people who are running into those countries. When we want them, they can be extradited to face the law. So yes, we've had that challenge, but of course, as going back to your question, we've had insecurity in Eastern Congo for a long time, and that has also affected the wildlife population. Where insecurity thrives, illegal poaching and illegal wildlife trade thrives. Because when there is insecurity, when there are rebels, wildlife becomes the good source of food. But when they realize that they can also make money from the sale of products like ivory, they also make it a lucrative business for them to get money, because they use that money to acquire arms. So in some of these areas that are surrounding Uganda, there has been a lot of insecurity, which makes it difficult for the wildlife authorities there to really be effective. And so we have animals killed. We have animals taking refuge in Uganda, from Virunga in Congo to Queen Elizabeth in Uganda. We have seen that these animals, somehow they also have some intelligence. They know where it is safe and where it is not safe. When Uganda had insecurity issues in the 70s, the animals ran into Congo. Now when Congo was in trouble, the animals ran into Uganda. So yes, we are working with the wildlife agencies in the countries that are neighboring us to have that collaboration. There are regional bodies like the Lusaka Agreement Task Force, where most of the countries neighboring us are members, and those bodies have protocols on collaboration, on transboundary issues, so that when you have those issues, how do you manage them? So we have a lot of mechanisms in place. But going back to the canine unit, because yes, you raised something which we left halfway. When we introduced the canine unit at Entebbe, we were each year having about 5 to 12 tons of ivory seized in Asia, in Malaysia, in Sri Lanka, in India, all those countries in the Eastern Asia, and they are traced to have passed through Entebbe. So when we put the canine unit in 2016 December, I would say what we get now, it is difficult. You can't pass ivory at Entebbe. It is not possible. So what we are getting now is the people who have bangles, these small we call them chopsticks, those items that have been carved from ivory. Some of the people who carry those actually carry them out of ignorance. They buy these things and carry them, but of course we normally confiscate them because internationally nobody is allowed to take ivory or any ivory material unless you have been licensed. And as we know, ivory trade has been banned internationally, so nobody is allowed to trade in ivory and ivory products. So we saw when we deployed the canine unit, and these dogs, as you rightly said, they are well trained. They sniff ivory, they sniff rhino horns, pangolin scales, but also other, interestingly, we saw our dogs detecting other forms of animals, wildlife. We arrested one national of a country I will not mention, who was carrying insects, and they were live insects, and we had not noticed, but the dog detected something and said there is something here. When we checked, there were insects. Of course, some of those you can still be allowed to take them, but you need to have paperwork also to know what are you taking them for, because you may be taking them for research, you may be taking them for other purposes. So you still need to get documentation and license. So we've seen the dogs helping us to combat that. And when we did that, the traffickers shifted, because these guys are also very smart. So they shifted and started using the road to use Maraba, to use borders, and that's why we established a unit at Karuma. Now the unit at Karuma is mobile. It's stationed at Karuma. We can do spot checks on buses and trucks and whatever, but it also goes to Arua, West Nile, it goes to Eregu, it can go as far as Kidepo, Maraba, and then the Entebbe one is also mobile. Sometimes we go to Kisoro, we go to Bunagana, we go to this border going Mutukura. So we do mobile operations because our canine units are mobile. They have the necessary accessories and vehicles to be able to move. And now, next month, another game changer is coming. So we've now addressed the issue of illegal wildlife trade, because we have really arrested many people. Some have run away, they are hiding in other countries, but we are on them. Now, we want to deal with poaching. We want to prevent the poaching. And one way to do it is still the dogs. We've realized that the dogs, in addition to sniffing, can track. So next month, August, we are bringing in dogs. I won't tell you where they will be stationed, but we are going to use these dogs to be able to track poachers. They just need to pick a smell and follow that smell. And whether the poacher is at home, in his bed, in a church, the dog will find him. Definitely. So we want to deal abroad poaching. And I think in the next 1 year, poaching will be history in Uganda, especially in the protected areas.
Well, and I hope, God willing, I'll also donate one.
Sure. I know you are.
Donate one. Training is going to be on UA.
I know you are.
Donate one male to you.
I know you
in
like
the fight
dogs
against that is poaching.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Director, now, when we look at poaching in this country, it seems the poachers are also changing trend. And now, previously, they were taking these in raw form, like you rightly said. But now the challenge is they take finished products. You find a bowel or a dish made out of ivory very well. And what are you doing on local market? I don't want to mention places. I love crafts so much. But most of the times when you go to these places, even the person selling will tell you this earring is pure ivory. You know?
Yes.
And people are buying. They'll tell you this earring is pure ivory. This is pure ivory. Touch, feel, you know, ivory. So this is why it's expensive compared to the rest.
Yes.
People are buying out of ignorance. Maybe those selling are selling them out of ignorance, local market wasn't a problem. Yeah. But of course with globalization, of course now a person would like a bangle, would feel, so for local market, what are you doing there? I've not heard of any impounding in these markets.
No, actually we do have operations that go around to, when we get intelligence information about some of the shops that are selling these items. Incidentally, we do not have a carving industry in Uganda for these items. So most of the people who are selling these items are actually also bringing them from elsewhere and selling them, finding a market. The nice carving industry is in Southern Africa and still Asia. In Uganda, you have, yes, somebody would shape some ivory into something, but not that nice thing that you talked about. So some of these people selling these are also getting them illegally from outside and selling them. Of course, it is illegal. But if for example, we know that there are carving industries in Southern Africa which are licensed. And if you acquired that legally from that shop in South Africa, which is licensed, we can allow you to import through a license and sell. That is allowed. So there is also that formal, that legal way in which the local markets, if they want to sell in these products, as long as they acquire them from the legal institutions that have been allowed or permitted to do that, that is accepted. But we do operations once in a while based on intelligence. We also do sensitization, like we are doing now. We tell people it is wrong. You shouldn't deal in these products without a license. You shouldn't sell. You can just walk to Uganda Wildlife Authority and tell us if you want to deal in these products, as long as you tell us the source, and we are able to verify the source, that you are not hunting our animals and then carving and turning things and putting them in the shop. That is acceptable. So we do a lot of sensitization. We have the Community Conservation Department at UWA. It is headed by a director now. It used to be at a lower level, but it has been upgraded to a directorate now. It is headed by a director with staff. We have Community Conservation Department in each of our protected areas. Their role, in addition to educating people about the importance of wildlife, is also to educate them on some of these issues, like how can you get involved in utilization of wildlife? How can you be licensed to use wildlife as opposed to using it illegally? So we do a lot of sensitization, but we also do a lot of operations, and we do a lot of intelligence. We collaborate with other agencies. At the national level, we have also created a national anti-wildlife crime coordination task force. Okay. Now this task force is headed by the executive director, UWA, and it is comprised of 11 institutions. We have the police CID, Interpol, we have the immigrations, we have customs URA, we have National Forest Authority, we have NEMA, we have the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, we have Civil Aviation Authority. So we have 11 institutions that have come together to collaborate in this vice, because you realize that the people who are dealing in this, they need to run out, so they pass through immigration. So we need immigration to be able to trace them.
So in brief, it's a procedural approach of all stakeholders.
So we have created that task force at the national level.
In the interest of time, Director, let me have your final remarks to Ugandans regarding poaching and illegal wildlife trade.
So thank you to Ugandans. I want to tell you that we are gifted by nature, as you know. We have this wildlife. This wildlife is for us. It is for the current generations. It is for the future generations. Let us protect it. Let us preserve it. And let's use it to improve our livelihoods through tourism. And for those who want to use it sustainably, there are mechanisms through Uganda Wildlife Authority where you can be licensed to use this wildlife sustainably. We thank you for your cooperation, and we request that you work with us to conserve our wildlife for generations.
Well, thank you, Charles Tumwesije, who is the Deputy Director Operations, Uganda Wildlife Authority, and we must ensure that we can coexist. We can coexist because we need the animals, we need the plants, much as they also need us for self-protection and for prosperity, for generations to come, to be able to look at these animals and enjoy them the way we have enjoyed them. Ruben is ready to take you through the world of sports. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.